having trouble connecting today for some reason. Come on, we can do it, YouTube. Come on. That took like a solid minute to fully connect. Excuse me, ma'am. What are we doing? Bandit decided she was gonna make a bed. So if you hear scratching noises, it's her making a bed. Hi, everyone. What? Well, the lights aren't red and green. They're red and blue. Don't tell me what to do. They're my lights. I've used these lights before. Like the same setting I've used like 3 or 4 times. It's red and blue. Trust me, I am very strongly against doing Christmas anytime before December. So there's not going to be any Christmas before Thanksgiving around here. Trust me. Ooh. Blue. I don't know if you look at my chair. My chair is green. Look at the blue. Okay, do these look like the same color to you guys? I swear to God, they're not the same. Here, I'm just going to completely get out of frame, and then you guys can see what the color is. I will not be slandered about my colors. Please, are you guys blind? Like, does this lime green look anything like that sky blue? What? They're not similar. You guys are lying to me. Liars, you guys are just trying to make fun of me. The war on Christmas will continue until Christmas stops as a legal occupation of November. I mean, I understand why for other countries, like if you're Canadian or you're in the UK, like Canada has its Thanksgiving in October, and then the UK doesn't have a Thanksgiving at all. So I get like November for other countries being this weird in-between month between Halloween and Christmas, and being like we can start Christmas early, I guess. But like if you're in America and you literally, the way our calendar for this part of the year is designed is every 4 weeks we have a holiday. Give each holiday its 4 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is, you know? It's not that hard to be patient, I feel like, but I guess for some people it is. Hi everyone, I finally had the time to catch a live stream live. Hi Evie, love your channel. Thank you for being here, Clams. And thank you everyone for watching. I know there's a bunch of stuff going on with the news right now with, I know like the Free Britney movement's having a really big day today because from what I understand, the Britney conservatorship is now over. Like that got ruled in court today, and so I know there's lots of like legal live streams happening for that and for like Kyle Rittenhouse, like all the other things that are going on. So I thank you for being here. I see. Well, thank you everyone who waited very patiently. Thank you, Maya. Ooh, is that your icon? Is that Demon Slayer? Is that a Nezuko? is that a Nezuko icon? If so, we stand. Hello, Take a Black. Hello, Feels Violet. Hello, is there Nikki? Hello, N80's Creation. Hello, ABSP. Hello, Hellatrix. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good name too. Hello, James. Hello, Melanie. Hello, Marionette Doll. Hello, Renee. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. So, just a couple of things. And no worries about being late. I simply was here before you were. So it's okay. So much time left for streaming today. So really quickly before we get into it, of course, always as per usual, this is an 18 plus only live stream. So if you are not at least 18, please do not be here, as it says right here please keep that in mind. I also do have a set of rules and an FAQ down below, which you can also check out down below. And that is to make sure that we are keeping everything within the nice, safe, friendly YouTube guidelines, because, you know, I really don't want to get my channel deleted over something I said in the live stream once 3 years ago. So I just have some basic guidelines and rules, things I don't discuss. So if you have questions about like how to do blood play, how to choke your boyfriend, how to do waterboarding, can't help you with that. Not running afoul of YouTube on that one. Otherwise, I do have some other resources and links to common questions, like if you want to know where to buy a vlogger, what books I recommend, that kind of thing is also going to be down below. So that is kind of the intro, kind of the basics. Speed running through it. You guys really liked the video I did on Anthony Padilla, which makes me really happy because I waited a while to publish that one because I filmed that video right after that Anthony Padilla video came out about interviewing dominatrixes or spending a day with dominatrixes, and I filmed that before all of my Halloween videos came out, and I was like, oh, well, I want to publish this one, but I'm doing Halloween content. So I had to like push it away like way farther later than I originally planned on publishing it. And so I was like, oh no, I felt like I had maybe missed the opportunity for that video to be relevant. And then like no one was going to watch it because everyone's going to be like, oh, Eve, you already saw that video. Like we don't care. Because YouTube can definitely, I think it's less so with the kind of content I make, but a lot of YouTube content is very much based in doing it right there in the moment, the day after it happens, maybe 2 days later if it's a really big subject. And if you don't get on it right away, like people don't want to see it anymore and don't care about it. And luckily my content is not like YouTube drama or current event commentary or news where, you know, if I miss that 2-day cycle, then I just might as well not make a video about it at all. I have more time, I think, but still, it's like when something's been up for a while, YouTube is not always as kind to the video because it's like, oh, people have already seen this. Nobody wants to see this video. So I am glad that you all decided to watch it. Thank you. What about spanking? What about spanking indeed? What questions do you have about spanking? Spanking is perfectly under the realm of an acceptable thing to discuss because it does not involve giving medical advice primarily. The video is awesome, fun, informative, and super entertaining. You know what's really interesting, and I'm curious if anyone here has this opinion. I made that video and I got a couple of comments. Like I got like 2 or 3 comments from people. There's one comment I got that you guys would probably find entertaining. But I noticed a couple people said they found Anthony to be condescending in his videos. Like his tone of voice or the fact he laughs like comes across as condescending, which I thought was really interesting because I've, you know, the first video of his like that I ever watched, I think was the one on ABDL. And I've watched the ones he's done with furries, aromantics, asexuals, cult survivors, like a couple of things like that, like probably a half dozen in total. And even from the first one where I was fully prepared. I was like strapped in, like, oh, this is going to be like cringy and bad. And it's going to be another bad representation of an aspect of the world of BDSM. And it totally wasn't that at all. And I was really surprised. I was fully prepared to just recognize, oh, this is another YouTuber being an asshole and misrepresenting a community. And I totally didn't get that at all from any of the videos of his that I've watched. So I'm kind of curious, like, I wonder what about it maybe other people perceive as being condescending. I know with the laugh thing, I guess I could see that. But he reminds me, and I don't watch like late night TV because I don't own a TV, but it's like Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel. One of those two. Like, I know they're really known for laughing, like, at everything all the time during interviews with celebrities they have on their show. And I was kind of thinking it was like that, where just Anthony has been making comedy videos on YouTube for the last 10 plus years. Like, I think his default response to a lot of things is just laughter, and not because he's mocking them or because he thinks it's funny. It's just like, that's like his default response for emoting is a brief second of laughter, especially if it is like a very personal, deep subject. And I've noticed with the ones he's done that are much more serious, like the one I think he did with somebody that had escaped like a Christian cult, I don't think he laughed in that at all. So like, clearly he knows like when to do it and not do it. But I just thought that was interesting that like you can have such different perceptions of a creator. And I know I've had that as well. I've had people that tell me I come off as like not condescending necessarily. I guess that. But that I think I'm better than other people, or that like I'm on my high horse or something like that, and I'm like, no, I'm just talking. I don't know. I'm not trying to make anything be like, oh, well, see, I'm the BDSM expert, and all of you listening to me, you're not the BDSM experts, so shut up. Like, I don't try to come across that way, but I guess some people see it that way. Also, I have some decaf chai tea and almond milk or oat milk or whatever this is. Not my favorite, actually. I tried multiple different ways of brewing this decaf chai tea because, like, I can't have caffeine, and, like, I love chai tea, but the caffeine just does a number on me, let me tell you, so I can't do full strength. But the mug you are allowed to tease me for because it is technically a Target Valentine's Day mug. So I'm skipping. I'm not even going to Christmas. I'm going all the way to February if this mug's anything to go by. I do actually have a really big Christmas mug that's it's like this big, and I will use that for hot chocolate regardless of what time of year it is. So also feel free to roast me for that. That one's also fair game. Okay, let's get to some questions. And by the way, the title obviously says bondage and like being new to kink. So it's kind of the theme. I went to my first kink event last Friday in 2 years, which is why I didn't stream last Friday because I had to do membership orientation again because I went with someone that was new, and so it was like the third orientation I've been to just for this one place. And I went to that orientation, and so that started, we had to be there at 6, and so we had to leave at like 5:30. Or no, it started at 7, but we met up at 5:30 and then had to be downtown and find parking. It was like this whole thing. Anyways, wasn't there because I was gone from like 6:30 until, I thought the party was going to be over at like 1 or 2. It was actually over at midnight, and we just did stuff the whole time. I was really busy. So I was gone last Friday doing fun, happy things. I am doing a video about my whole experience at that party for Patreon, actually. I'm possibly going to film that on Sunday and have that be out next week sometime. Possibly. Don't have a solid plan for my whole weekend at this point. I have a bunch of stuff going on. Actually, something else I wanted to bring up. We're doing all sorts of updates right now, I guess. So, I am doing a conference again this weekend because I also taught. Friday, I went to a BDSM party, and then Saturday I was teaching at a convention, and then on Sunday I went to a concert. So. My introverted self needs some recovery time, but I'm not quite done with my activities yet, so I have to wait a couple more days. There is an online conference that is happening this coming weekend. It's the 13th and the 14th. It's called Leather Rain. I've been going to Leather Rain events for the whole time pretty much I've been in BDSM. The first Leather Rain I went to I think was 4 years ago at this point. Maybe 5. I've been going here for a while, and if you are somebody that is at the stage of your kink journey, or if this is just more your style, if you're not really looking for like caning 101, flogging 101, if you want to know like, okay, I get that, but like how do I actually start this journey of being in a master-slave relationship? Like, this is where you would go. So they have some really interesting classes that are going to happen. So, for example, they have one that's called Different Abilities and Service. So that is for people that are living with disabilities and also want to provide service. There is a humiliation and degradation class. There is being aware of, this is the first class tomorrow morning. It's awareness of mental health and power exchange. That's also going to happen. There is one that's like an interaction between like how to use neuroscience for your aftercare. Like it's like a science-y kind of class. There's ones on navigating a relationship plateau, which is like, that's for if you've been in BDSM for a while, you've been doing power exchange for a while, and maybe your relationship has reached kind of a point of stagnation. It's like how to work through those moments and like keep your relationship interesting, I guess. And then it's like stuff about self-worth and power exchange. There's a dark age play class I'm also going to be taking. And then there's also a class for trans and non-binary people in the community. There's so much stuff, lots of interesting things going on. And I am really excited to see how all this goes this coming weekend. They have not been able to host an event for a while, so I'm really glad they're able to come back. And it's online. It's totally free. You just have to register for it. I put the link for it in the chat on YouTube. It's leatherrein.org. Rein is spelled not like the reins of a horse, but R-E-I-G-N. Like reign, like the reign of a monarch, as opposed to the reins of a horse. So, now you know. If you're like some more education beyond my videos, recommend going to that. And then I'm also going to be marathoning the new Sex, Love, and Goop series on Netflix tomorrow as well. So that's going to be fun. If you guys don't know, this is a preview for a video I'm doing. I'm going to be reviewing the Sex, Love, and Goop. I don't even know what to call it. I guess it is. Well, it's not a series because it just... I think it's going to be only this one season. Like, it's like somewhere between a TV show and like a mini documentary, something in there. Anyways, Gwyneth Paltrow of Goop has decided that she is a sexpert and wants to help strangers with their sex lives and has made a mini documentary on Netflix about it. And the preview for the series on YouTube had a lot of BDSM in it. Like claws and metal floggers and bondage and blindfolds and all of that business. And I'm nervous because the show is framed as like helping people in long-term relationships get the spark back in their bedroom life, you know? And I think there is certainly a place for BDSM to be like a helpful tool for sex and not really anything else beyond that. Like just really, really simple blindfold, feather tickler, Velcro restraint level deals, which is not bad. It's just like, that's one level of kink. Metal floggers and giant Wolverine claws that are really sharp and could break skin is like a different level. And I'm like, how do you, without any potential previous conversation about it, be like, okay, so here's some tools you can play around with in the bedroom to see what kind of like ignites your sparks. Anyways, here's a set of 10-inch long Wolverine claws. Let's see how those feel. It's like, that might be a little bit excessive, perhaps, to start with. So I'm curious to see what happens. I don't necessarily have good feelings about it, but I'm going to treat it like I did with bonding. I think if you guys saw my videos reviewing that series, where I don't want to be too harsh on it, but I want to point out where there's problems with accuracy, especially because Gwyneth Paltrow is, by her own admission in interviews, like anti-porn, and thinks that like rough sex is bad for women. So I'm like, okay, wait, let me get this straight. So you're on record in interviews saying you think that rough sex is bad for women, but also you're going to make a documentary series for YouTube where you encourage vanilla people with no previous kink experience to try kink. And that's not going to be a problem. And that's not going to be a anti-feminist or whatever it is that you're worried about, Gwen. It's fine because you're going to make money off of it. But when other people do it to make porn, then it's bad. Got it. Okay. So that'll be interesting. That's going to be my adventure for this weekend. Hopefully you guys are doing something more relaxing than watching Gwyneth Paltrow. Or maybe if you're on Patreon, you're watching it with me. And then it's very relaxing because we're cringing together. And isn't that the true meaning of isn't that the true meaning of the season, is togetherness and cringing with one another? Isn't that right? Oh, okay, so we have a super chat. By the way, I do answer questions in the order they come in, but if you want to make sure I do answer your question, a super chat is the way to do that. So thank you, Andrew. I think I have a question. What would you say is the best for a newbie to do first? Attend a class or a small local event? I really think it just is whatever works best for your schedule. I don't think it's that one is objectively better than the other. It's just what is available to you. And also it's like, what is the local event and like, what is the class? Because I think if it's like any class or any local event, I would probably go for the class first because it's lower risk. Because you can go to a small local event and have it be like ran by somebody that's super unethical, and it, you know, because of COVID, right? Maybe nobody's vaccinated. Like there could be like lots of things there that make the small event maybe not the best choice to go to. But I think either one, it depends on, I think maybe what stage of the process you're in as a newbie, because like you can be a newbie and have done a lot of research about kink, and I'm sure that many of you in the chat right now are kind of more on this part of things where you're like new and now you haven't maybe done kink before, done a lot of it before, but you read a lot, you watched a lot of videos, you maybe have taken online classes, you are in discussion groups, Discord chats, Telegram group messages, whatever else, I don't know what the kids have these days, but you're doing a lot of that. But even if you haven't done kink, you have a pretty solid like educational background, and that you know the difference between a top and a bottom and a top and a dom, and what is flogging, how is the flogger different from a whip. And if you're starting with that base of knowledge, I don't think a class is maybe necessary, and I think maybe the next step that makes more sense is going to the in-person event and meeting people. But if you're going into kink and you're just kind of like going like, okay, you know, plug the nose, close your eyes, dive right in, not going to do a lot of education beforehand, then I think going to a class first makes more sense, because if you don't know the basic terminology, if you don't really know what the differences are in a lot of things, like going to an event that's like a dungeon party, for example, could be really overwhelming because you don't know what to expect because you haven't like looked into it very much. And then I think a class would be a better first introduction. But like just going to an event really at all, like I don't want anyone to feel like they have to wait for the perfect event to start doing BDSM. Like just get out there, just go meet people, you know, put names to faces, and just try to find the start to your community and whatever that looks like and where you fit in. And it's never going to be a perfect time the first time you go, right? It's like you don't want it to be built up too much, in the same way you don't want to build up like your first experience of having sex, right? Like the first time you have sex, it's not going to be this like perfect, amazing, mind-blowing experience, right? Because you are new to it and you're learning about the people you're with and maybe how your body reacts to things. And so rather than waiting for the perfect thing, it's better, I think, to just like go and do it while having taken at least some safety precautions, so you're not going into a wolf den, you know what I mean? All right, we have a question that is from Ravenous Medicine. I'm starting to get into leather, but I'm curious if it's also possible to be into leather but also vegan in a sense. So, as someone that is also vegan, I will attempt to answer this question to the best of my ability. I don't know if you mean into leather in the sense of like using like leather floggers, wearing leather clothing, using leather bondage items, or like being part of leather culture. I think there is a way to be vegan and be part of leather culture and use leather items, depending on how you define your own personal sense of veganism and what you're comfortable being around. So I think if you are in leather culture, there's totally every reason that you can be vegan and do that at the same time, especially because, and this is the important part of like your personal veganism, is a lot of leather clothing items that are worn by people in leather culture are passed down from other people and are not original items that were made purposely for that person. They were passed down and then they were tailored to fit whoever they went to next. So that would be like caps, vests, chaps, anything like that. Those get passed down over and over and over again. And so it's actually traditional in leather communities, although this has changed over time, that you wouldn't get your first piece of leather clothing until you had earned it and someone had given it to you. So if you're okay wearing and being around leather clothing, as long as it's like antique or vintage, like I think that's fine. Some vegans they find like the smell of leather to be repulsive. They don't like it. They don't like the texture. I know, for example, some vegan restaurants won't allow you to come in if you're wearing real leather and real fur, for example. There's like a bistro here that has that rule. But if you're okay being around stuff, if it's not like original, or wearing stuff that's not, I don't know how to phrase this, the opposite of vintage, like something that's like a new fashion, right? Like I think that works. Personally for me, what I've decided, and I started buying like BDSM stuff before I went vegan, so I have definitely a lot of stuff that is older that I have continued to use even being vegan. However, when it comes to leather garments, I do try to buy secondhand. So, for example, actually, I am crazy excited about this. This is like I haven't made any big BDSM purchases in like a very long time, but the first big thing that I purchased is I was just browsing on Etsy and I found a vintage leather dress that's from a really, really big, famous Canadian, actually, leather fetish clothing designer. And they're like pretty much the only leather fetish clothing designer that's still around that makes clothing for women. There used to be a place called Stormy Leather, which made leather primarily for the like lesbian leather community, which has since gone out of business. At least I think they have. And then Mr. S Leather used to have a Mrs. S Leather line. If you go to their in-person store, they do have some things left. They do have blouses and skirts that are cut for women, but for the most part, it's very, very hard to find leather clothing for women. Anyways, I was on Etsy and I found a vintage 90s piece of a northbound leather clothing. That's a really, really cute dress. I think it's a size too big for me based off of the measurements. It's I think I would need to take it in by about like 2 inches, I think, for it to fit me properly. But not only was it half the cost of actually getting. I did not miss a super chat from Melanie at the start. I know what they're doing. I'm not reading their super chat out loud, but I appreciate the heads up, Zernecki. They have been here a lot and love spamming the chat about their love of tickle fetish. So they can keep sending in super chats if they want to see if I'll read them, but I'm not here to roleplay a fetish with someone over my live streams. You guys are not that sly. Anyways, yeah, I got a piece of northbound leather. I got a dress, and now the problem is finding a tailor for it so I can actually wear it. But one of the advantages of leather is obviously it lasts for a really long time, and when you do buy something that is made, especially by like a fetish manufacturer that knows these pieces get passed down, they tend to be high quality and last for 30, 40 plus years. And to me, I think that makes sense. I'm like, okay, sweet. I can roll with that. I can deal with that. And I know not all vegans are comfortable with it, but I'm fine with it. Now, if it's like, is there vegan BDSM equipment that I can buy, right? So many options for that. There's latex, there's PVC, there's rubber, there's all kinds of things. I've been browsing a lot on Etsy recently to kind of see what's around. I know that there are lots of options for latex hoods, latex bondage items. If you're allergic to latex, there is also some options for things like cotton or canvas or PVC. Some bondage manufacturers as well do offer biothane, which is vegan, or vegan leather. I would look for biothane if you are looking for restraints, collars. It's a little bit harder to find. There's going to be less options, but biothane is waterproof. It is quite long lasting. I have a collar if you guys have seen it. It's the one with the heart lock on it. That's made from biothane. It's waterproof. Really good option even if you're not vegan. If you want something that you can wear really often, that's waterproof, sweat-proof, all of that, biothane is the one to go for that. So yeah, there's lots of options. You're never going to get the exact same sensation if you're looking for impact play stuff from leather or vegan leather. You're also not going to get the smell. So if the sensory qualities of leather are important to you, like again, the smell factor or the texture of it, like especially with floggers, they do make rubber floggers. They do make floggers that are vegan or made from faux fur, for example, if you want something that's lighter for warm-up. But they're not going to last as long, typically, if it's, like, made from a vegan leather. Like, I just wouldn't buy a vegan leather flogger. It's probably just going to be a waste to get thrown away after a couple of uses because it stretches out a lot from the impact and being swung around. So that's, I would consider to be wasteful. But if you're getting rubber, like that tends to just be like really stingy, really heavy. And if that's the sensation you like, great. But if you don't, then rubber floggers aren't going to be for you. There's lots of other types of toys that aren't like floggers and such like that are made from non-leather materials. Lots of options for wood, some types of metal. There's like nylon whips instead of like leather whips. Different things you can do that are vegan friendly or not made from leather. If you do like the smell of leather, you can get leather scented like body wash and room spray, so you can have the scent of leather without actually having to be around leather. But it's not, again, I have tried like 8 different fragrance oils for leather and they all smell like basically the same, which is it's a very like chemically new leather smell that's less like leather garments at like a massed meeting and more like leather in a new car, or like that. It's a really like sharp, like acrid kind of leather smell, like it's been freshly processed, and I don't like that smell. I don't like the smell of really new leather that's like, I don't know, it's some certain tanning process that gives it that particular smell, but whatever that is, I don't prefer that over like a more worn in leather smell, I guess. Anyway, sorry, very long ramble there about leather and vegan stuff. So let me know what you think about that. Other options that might be available. Everything is chemicals. You are right. Everything is chemicals. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, for sure. Etsy is a really, really good resource to look for. I know the Kink collection makes stuff from biothane. I think if you're in Canada, the Church of Sinvention also makes some of their stuff from biothane as well. They have a really long processing time though, so I wouldn't recommend them as a first choice, but there are many options out there, and Etsy is still a pretty good place to go for a lot of things. All right, let's get back to some questiones. Oh my god, YouTube is just being a little bit saucy with the things they're choosing to block. I don't know what's going on with that, guys. Oh, yeah, I don't like putting up Christmas decorations until after Remembrance Day in Canada, by the way. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not sure when Remembrance Day is, but we don't have that in America because we have Thanksgiving Day instead. But that's a good benchmark, I suppose. Huh, okay. Hi Evie, I swear I remember Daddy Only. In the Anthony interview, she said she was in the BDSM community for a couple of years before going pro. But he could have edited it out if I'm misremembering. So I watched it, and I filmed that video like a couple of hours after it came out originally. So I don't think he would have had time to edit that part out between when it went live and when I watched it. And I also downloaded the video for editing within like 3 days of that video coming out. So I don't think it was that it edited out. Maybe you saw that somewhere else, because I don't think any of them mentioned being in the BDSM community for a couple of years before going pro. I am sure there has been pro doms, because there's lots of videos with pro doms on YouTube, like more than you would think, but like Channel 4, BBC, Truly, Anthony Padilla, like lots of places have interviews with the pro doms. Like it's like there's 12 videos interviewing pro doms and nobody interviewing actual community members. So it's like the only thing pro doms exist, but I think that's like part of it as well, which is why I really love it if you talk to not just pro doms, although I think that's obviously worth having a conversation around. I would really love it if he also talked to not just pro doms but lifestyle people, because I do think people assume the only people that do BDSM are professionals, and that it's all professional dominatrixes, right? Air quotes around dominatrix, and like male submissives, and that's kind of it. That's the only option. And that's certainly not a helpful misconception to have, let's say. The Anthony Padilla video, it literally just came out, I think, what is time? I put it out yesterday, I want to say. Sometimes I forget when I publish my own videos. It's called Going Too Far, and then it's like, I spent a day with the dominatrix reaction video or something. I did kind of a clickbait thumbnail because the stills I got from that video were just too good. Like I could not make it clickbait, and I hope that you all forgive me for that. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this. Ariam Orozco, maybe? I'm not sure. My BF and I want to try BDSM. Where do you recommend us to start? Where do you recommend us to start? That, my friend, is a very big question. So the actual answer to this is it depends on what both of you want to do, because BDSM is a very, very, very big world. There are lots of different types of BDSM, and a lot of people like starting out with something that's called the BDSMtest.org. It has been around for the whole time I've been in the scene, at least, probably longer than that. And it is a little quiz you can take that's really fun. You can take it separately. And it helps you kind of narrow down what sort of things you might be into, be that bondage, DDLG, power exchange, switching, anything like that. It'll help give you some terms just to start researching, some things to start looking into, and kind of figure out if your interests are like compatible in the first place, right? So that's where I would start with, and then just kind of narrow down where do you guys have overlap in your interests. Like, do you want DDLG and he wants like master slave? Do you want it only in the bedroom and he wants it to be a lifestyle? Do you want to play in public and he wants to stay at home and be private? Like, those are all those little questions you'd have to figure out. But I think the first step is to figure out just make a bullet point list. You don't have to know everything yet. You don't have to know all the right terms, but like there's lots of yes, no, maybe checklists and quizzes you can take to help you kind of figure out what it is you might be into, and then start from that list and then kind of research and find more out about what those things actually are. And that, I think, will give you a pretty solid way to then actually navigate to doing kink, as opposed to just like guessing randomly and being like, well, I see a lot of people wearing blindfolds, so I guess we should maybe start with that, which that could be totally fine. But if you're not into like sensory deprivation at all, then like, a blindfold by itself isn't necessarily going to do anything, Do you know what dacrophilia means? I heard it recently in a fan fiction. Dacrophilia is a fetish. It's actually more obvious than it might seem from the name. Dacrophilia is a fetish for crying. It's doesn't really, as far as I know, it doesn't have its own kink name. It's just kind of known by like the scientific terminology. But yeah, dacrophilia is being into crying. I'm curious if you heard it in a fan fiction. What was it? Did they call it dacrophilia? What do they do with that? We have a super chat here from Skeptic Skeleton. Any advice for shy newbie littles? Oh my gosh, so much advice. I'm new to being a little and I'm very shy, so I'm not sure what to do or how to find other littles or caregivers. So, disclaimer, obviously, I am not a little, but I am shy and I was once new to the community myself. And being a pet player, I have overlapped many a time with littles in many spaces. And just for maybe some initial reassurance, having been to different dungeons and events all across the country and around the world, almost every single event that I've been to has littles at it, and almost every single event that I've been to, the littles are friendly and welcoming and are really excited that there's other littles around and other people they can talk to and play with. So don't necessarily be nervous. I know for pet play and littles and ABDL and stuff, the online community can be really harsh and judgmental and be very much like, oh, you're doing this the wrong way, and if you do this sexually, you're not blah blah blah. Like, I had an argument about that in my fucking comment section from a video on Anthony Padilla yesterday. There was like people going back and forth, like 10 comments about like whether or not you can be sexual and be a little. And it's like, the real answer is it can be anything you want, okay? And I guarantee you that people in the real life community are not nearly as high strung about stuff like that as people online are. So you can relax about that. If you've had any negative experiences about people being really judgmental and gatekeepy, I don't know. Like, I have to imagine that those people that are really gatekeepy online just don't participate in real life, because proportionally, like, how people act online versus real life, either they're completely two-faced about it or they just don't ever go to in-person events, because I have had such different experiences. But there's lots of online places you can find other littles. I know from what other people have said, there's lots of Facebook groups. I know there is a forum that at least used to be fairly popular. Let me see if I can find it again. Can't remember it. Yeah, there's there's a subreddit as well. There's r/littlespace. There's DDLG forum, which I think is the one I was thinking of. I don't know if that's still popular at all, but I know that at least used to be a thing. There's also, like, if you're into Reddit at all, there is a BDSM community subreddit that is really good for asking advice on. Although it's not catered to littles, a lot of people on there do know about it. But for finding events, anything like that, even like locally connecting with other littles, FetLife is going to be your best bet. I've talked about FetLife before, but to give a brief overview, FetLife is like the Facebook of BDSM. However, it has less political advertisements and does not have nearly as much political discourse on it. So it's not quite the same in that regard. But it is the social media website where people meet up and connect and find events primarily. There are forums and groups on there for particular interests like DDLG, like CGL, like age play. Some of them are general, so it's going to be people from all over the world. Some of them are more local or regional, so like Pacific Northwest age players or littles in the Southeast. There are actually age player and CGL conventions as well. There was one in Florida. There's one in Florida. I don't know if it's still going on because I don't know what happened with COVID. Let me see if I can find it again. But I know people that went to it and had a really good experience at it. Oh, there's multiple ones now, I think. Yeah, there's the Chicago Age Play Convention. Oh, West Coast Jungle Jam. That's what I was thinking of. West Coast Jungle Jam. TeddyCon also. And then I think there's one in like Australia or the UK or something as well, I think. So there are conventions you can go to as well. Those maybe are not necessarily the best option for somebody who's a little bit shyer, but in general, maybe when you do build up your confidence level, it's a really good way to meet with a community and have like a whole convention, not just a single party that's about you and your interests and helping you maybe get new ideas or meet people that you do know maybe a little bit more local to where you're at. But really, I think it's going to seem counterintuitive, and I know this. Trust me, I don't seem like this because I do YouTube for a living. I am very introverted. I have to spend a lot of time recharging in order to recover from going to really busy in-person events with lots of people at them. But sometimes you just have to like go and do it because you can get into this scenario where you get kind of trapped in your own head and you kind of talk yourself out of going to stuff because you're like, oh, people are going to judge me. They're going to be mean. I'm going to be the only one. Like, you know, just kind of spinning your wheels about it. And the best thing you can do is just like be brave and go once. Go on FetLife, like I mentioned, search for events, search for local groups. You may not immediately find something locally that is just for littles and for pets, but if you go to like a general munch, a general BDSM party, you know, and this could be my own local experience because every kind of scene has its own thing it seems to be biased towards in terms of like types of role play and things that people do. But anytime I've ever gone to a munch or a dungeon, there's always been like another person there that is a little, even if it's not like just for littles. So I would just go to an event, go once, talk to people, meet people, and that'll be like your brave first step. If you get overwhelmed, you can always leave. I've never had anybody be weird about either people coming late or leaving early. It's supposed to be you show up when you want to show up and you leave when you are ready to leave. And people just know that people have lives, they have babysitters, they have dog sitters, they have jobs, they have curfews. Like, people understand that you can't necessarily always stay for an entire 5-hour-long event or spend 3 hours at a coffee shop, you know? So it's usually no pressure, and sometimes even just doing that once and being visible, maybe that gets the ball rolling where you do meet one other little and you kind of both notice, hey, there's no like events or parties or things for littles. Like, why don't we start something? Why don't we do like a meetup at the zoo for littles, or go to this like cupcake shop, this ice cream shop or something, right? Like, that's sometimes what is necessary for things to get off the ground. But I promise it's not as scary as it might seem. Everyone is so friendly, and I really had that reconfirmed for me when I went to this dungeon event last Friday, that the BDSM world is truly a cross-section of just the normal ass regular everyday world and normal people. Like, it's, you get the impression sometimes, I think, that it's all like super hot buffs, like 19 to 23-year-olds, and that's the only people that do BDSM. And if you're not you know, skinny, young, white, conventionally attractive, like, then BDSM is not the place for you. And that's totally not the case. Like, at the party I was at, which was just for newbies, by the way. It was a introduction to the community party for everyone. I saw people there that were like couples in their 50s. I saw single people. I saw single, like just like anywhere between like 18 to 65 probably. I was at that event, and it was truly everyone across the board, all different body types, all ages, all shapes and sizes. And you know, I can't speak for everyone's individual experience, but I at least didn't observe anything that made me feel like the place was made to be uncomfortable for any particular group of people. And actually, one of the first people that ever did a scene, like for the whole night, was like it was an older gentleman that did a caning on like a fairly like large bodied person. I know we're kind of getting off into the weeds here in terms of subjects, but I know a lot of people get nervous about entering the community because they're like, oh, well, like I need to lose weight, or I've had like 3 kids, so my body's different, or whatever, or they've, for whatever reason in society, they've been made to feel very unattractive for their whole life. And like the first people that did scenes when I was at this event was like an older guy, and then like I don't know how to I don't want to like be too specific, I guess, as well, but like suffice to say, like somebody that had a larger body type that people wouldn't typically associate with being like an attractive submissive, like in the stereotype of when you go to Tumblr, right? If you just go off of what Tumblr told you, or what Google Images says a submissive looks like, right? Which is like blonde, long hair, big boobs but still skinny, not older than 22, like, you know, like if that was what you were going off of, this person would not fit into those categories. And they had an amazing time. They were great. Like they seemed like they had a lot of fun, and no one was like snickering at them or laughing or being like, oh my god, what is she doing? Like people were just like interested in being like, wow, she's getting caned really hard. Like that was the impression that people seemed to have. And so yeah, anyways, I know that we're not really talking about littles at the minute in particular, but I know sort of in the general conversation of like being new to BDSM, feeling nervous, maybe being worried about being judged. Lots of different types of people do BDSM, and it's not just a stereotype of what you see from porn or from images on the internets. Okay, so next question. How about that? Listen, I don't know if people are trying to be smart here. Are you into spanking? Your favorite position and item to be spanked with? Hi, Timothy. That's kind of personal. I'm going to say no comment. But thank you. I did see your super chat, Melanie. I don't know how to respond to that, and there's not a question in it, but it did appear on screen. So I'm happy you like tickling, but I'm not going to participate in tickle fetish roleplay with you. FYI, if that's the direction we're trying to go in. All right. Yes, it is a crying fetish. Okay, everyone else answered that before me. You guys are on the ball. I can't have enough caffeine. I just can't. My body, like, I can have some caffeine, but there, like, for whatever reason, like, I remember this one time I was in high school, and I had like an iced mocha or something from McDonald's, like I got at the drive-thru, not realizing how caffeinated that would be. Like I was thinking it was like a frappuccino, like how they have at Starbucks, where it probably doesn't actually have any coffee in it. It had coffee in it. It did, and I literally didn't sleep for a whole day. So I stay away. I steer very clear. Great question, Camilla. Do you think 50 is too late in life to start kink? I dabbled in my early 20s and then got married and tried to live a, quote, traditional life. 25 years of not gonna accept the kids. No, actually not at all, Camilla. That is a very, very, very common scenario to be in for a couple of reasons. People oftentimes end up in scenarios like you, where they settle down and get married, maybe to a vanilla person, and they kind of put that kink off to the side to raise a family. Other couples know they're kinky and choose not to do it while they raise a family because they don't want to expose their kids, or because maybe their job is like higher profile and it would cause them trouble with their employment or with their career field if anyone ever found out they did kink. So lots of people don't get started until they're like empty nesters, right, after they've raised the kids. And again, based on the night I had at this newbie dungeon party I went to, you know, you did see a lot of people who were younger in their 20s that were new. You also saw a lot of people in couples that were in their 40s, 50s, and 60s as well that were just getting started into kink. I don't think there is a time where it's too late to get into BDSM. And of course, maybe your body is going to react to things differently versus maybe if you had done stuff in your 20s, like you might bruise differently. Your skin might be, because you lose like less. Over time, your skin loses elasticity as you age. And because of that, like you might be more sensitive to certain things, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. You're just going to have to take those things into account and not try to compare what your body looks like or your pain tolerance or things like that to somebody who's half your age, you know. But I am glad that you are out of that unsatisfying traditional life and are feeling brave enough and ready enough to get started, maybe more than dabbling in kink. And you are certainly not getting started too late. And I'm sure there are many of you in the chat right now, and there's a couple of you that are maybe around that 50-year-old age bracket. Although, of course, when you're online and using icons on a YouTube chat, it's hard to tell how old someone is. People have told me they thought I was condescending or unfriendly before they met me just because I'm quiet. So I just let people interpret whatever they want about me now, LOL. Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny the first impressions we leave with people and don't realize it. I've had a couple people tell me when they meet me, like, in person in real life for the first time. Not people that know me from the internet, but just in general. Apparently, I give off scary vibes somehow. Like, I give off mildly scary vibes. And I think that maybe it's just because I'm into kinky stuff and somehow that radiates out slightly, but I don't know. I don't know why. I love animals. I am obsessed with cute Pokemon. I play Animal Crossing. Like, I don't really think there's that much about my everyday life and vanilla existence that's scary, but I don't even like horror movies. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I love my dog. I love my dog so much. I love dogs in general and my dog in particular. And occasionally I just stare at her and point at her and go, oh my god, look, it's my dog. Pretty much. Hi, Evie. Do you have any advice for a new rope bottom that you haven't talked about in your older rope or negotiation vids? I mean, you say older, but like last time I talked about rope bottoming stuff was like a couple months ago, wasn't it? Like that's pretty recent for my content. Sometimes I don't talk about stuff for like 3 years. So let me check here and just do a little searchy search. Oh, because I think I have one. Yeah, the last one I have is from like 3 months ago. That's pretty recent for me. All right, there's the motorcycle. Thank you very much for arriving on time, good sir, with your motorcycle. I mean, I'm happy to answer any particular questions you have, Watermus, if you want to know anything about rope bottoming that maybe you watched in a video and you felt like I didn't answer fully or didn't get to, because I'm sure there's areas as far as rope bottoming goes that I haven't given advice on. The only thing that I would say that's like a good place to start from if you haven't is Evie Vane, not me, different Evie, spelled the same. Evie Vane has a book that is really a cornerstone for rope bottoming. It's still to this day, I think, the only book that's focused on rope bottoming, and it's called with a little guide to getting tied up, I think. And it's my name, but instead of lupine, it's vein. Vein like a weather vane, not vein like in your arm. And I do recommend that. It is older, so some of the advice for like finding partners, for example, is outdated because we don't have the same types of social media back then that we do now, right? So like TikTok was not a thing, for example, when that book was written, or certain dating apps weren't a thing yet when that book was written. So going to be slightly outdated in that regard, but I think overall it is pretty solid, relatively timeless advice. But again, yeah, if you do have any particular questions that you felt like I didn't get to or didn't cover in my other rope or negotiation videos, happy to answer that. I would say, key thing, because I do this, so I know, so I'm talking about this. There gets to be a point where you do have to spread your wings and jump out of the nest, take the leap of faith, and just do the thing. right? And that's scary. And I think sometimes, depending on how our brain works, we can get really, really, really stuck down in the learning and reading about process, which I think is good to do to some extent. But when you do it too much, you kind of paralyze yourself out of actually doing anything, because you're like, oh, well, do I know enough? Am I going to be safe enough? Do I know everything I need to know yet? And eventually you have to realize that, like, okay, you've done your research, you've read the books, you've taken the classes, you know kind of generally what to expect. The next thing you have to do is actually put that into practice. And some things you can't learn by reading about it, right? You can't know how your body feels in rope by reading about it. You can't know what areas of your body are more sensitive, what body parts feel okay being touched or not, just by reading about it. Some things you do have to experience and try, and you can try those things in a really controlled, low pressure environment. You can try some things on yourself, doing things on yourself like self-tying, but reading kind of gets you like here, right? And then this other bit over here, you have to like start doing it, and taking that leap can be really scary. And I want to acknowledge that, because I think if you're reading about it a lot and you have that base of knowledge, you're going to understand that rope can be kind of scary and it can be risky, and finding the right person to do things with can be really hard. But if you do get to that point where you want to actually practice stuff and go out and watch other people do things, that's going to be the next step of your journey, versus like kind of beating the question to death and trying to learn everything you can about the experience of rope by reading about it or watching other people do it. And actually, for that matter, watching other people do rope can be interesting and it can be informative, but it can also be a misrepresentation of what it can be like to do rope, because most of the videos out there of people doing things like rope suspension or doing performances, like, they are performers. Most of them have dance and performance backgrounds or theater backgrounds. They've been tying for a really long time. They practice their flexibility and being in rope a lot. And so you can't necessarily learn about what's it like to be in rope for the average person by like watching a trained performer that does it as their job, like being in rope. Like, that's gonna look different to them, you know? Anyways, sorry, I realize I'm rambling about that. Let me know what you think about it. Would be happy to answer any additional questions, but I want to make sure, because I know that's where my brain goes, especially when I was first getting into kink, is I would kind of get stuck in this cycle of reading and reading and reading and learning. And then when it came time to do it, I just had to, decide to jump into the pool, to go into the deep end, and just rely on my knowledge and the safety parameters I put in place to like help keep me safe, and not like overpromise on like what I thought was going to be possible to do. Maya asked, I finally worked up the courage to attend a local munch. I'm so nervous. Any tip or advice to calm my nerves? So I'm with you on that. I was actually really nervous when I went to the party on Friday, which maybe will surprise some people, because obviously like talking about BDSM is my job, and I do lots of live streams talking about it, and I have been in the community for a long time, but it had still been 2 years. Like, it had been a long time since I had gone to an in-person event, and I didn't know what to expect. I knew that I wasn't going to know a lot of the people there, if anyone, and I didn't end up knowing anyone there, which was actually good for me, because then it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about other people that already know me and like judging what I'm doing. So that can actually be a good thing. But I think what you can do to calm your nerves is like a couple of things, right? So one, if you feel comfortable doing this, if the event is on FetLife and you can contact the organizers, I would contact the organizers and let them know ahead of time, like, hey, I'm new, like, I'm kind of nervous about coming to this event. Can you tell me more about what it's like or what I can expect going there? And so if you have a clear picture of what happens at the munch, like, is this like 100 people in a bar? Is it 20 people at a pizza place? Is it 10 people outdoors meeting up at a park? Like, which thing is it more like? And so if you have a clear idea of what the event's going to look like and what people do at the event, that can help a lot with your nerves, because then you know more clearly what's going to happen, as opposed to your brain like thinking up of every disaster scenario and picking the one that's going to be the scariest for you to have to go through. Because if your brain is sitting there and picturing, oh my God, there's going to be like 50 people, it's going to be in this dark, crowded bar, I'm going to feel really overwhelmed and maybe ignored, that's going to be awful. Your brain can do that, or you can talk to the event organizer and they can tell you, hey, yeah, we're kind of a smaller munch. We normally have like 10 to 15 people and we meet outside. It's really casual and chill. that is going to help replace whatever your disaster scenario is in your brain. That's kind of what your brain's been doing. But also, like, just do things that make yourself feel confident, right? Like, maybe you have certain music you can listen to on the way there that helps you feel confident. Wear clothing that helps you feel confident. If wearing makeup or doing your hair helps with that, do that. Do whatever tools you think would help you feel more confident. I know personally, when I dress up a little bit more, when I have my makeup done, when I have my hair done and it's clean, like, I feel more confident and more prepared to kind of go into battle with socializing. And for you, that might be something that helps as well. Also, like, set up ways that you can kind of start conversations with people, like, with your clothing or with what you're wearing, whether that be with like pins or badges or a t-shirt that has like your favorite band on it or your favorite video game or something like that. That can also be a really helpful way to start too. And then finally, the last thing I would remember, although I'm not sure this helps you so much for the nervousness like farther in advance, but do keep in mind that oh, thank you. Good vibes for Bandit. Maybe in a minute I will pick up Bandit, but she's having a good old time sleeping on the floor right now. What was I saying? Oh yeah, last piece of advice for this is, though this I think helps more in the moment of the event or right before than like really far in advance, just remember that your emotions are actually very temporary in your brain unless you choose to hold on to them actively by like ruminating on them and focusing on them. So actually distracting yourself can be a really good way if those nerves start to overwhelm you a little bit. So I don't remember the exact number. I want to say like an emotion by itself lasts in your brain for like 15 seconds. So if you can find a way to distract yourself with something for that 15 seconds, you'll find that your nerves generally have gone down, unless you're in like a panic attack state or you have some kind of disorder that would make those nerves more intense and make you more likely to obsess about them and have intrusive thoughts around it. So that can be things. You can look stuff like this up. I'm not going to go over the details of how to do it in this live stream, but like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, counting your breath, meditating for a little bit, even distracting yourself with a YouTube video or a video game. I know what I do if I get really overwhelmed, like if I'm having a really intense like text message conversation or like I have to call someone on the phone. Like what I will do is I will like sit and play Animal Crossing for like a minute or two. Like I'll just get into playing Animal Crossing for a little while, like catch some fish and talk to my neighbors, like do all that. And even just having that distraction for a little bit, or like doing my skincare routine if it's late at night, or maybe doing something with Bandit, like maybe I need to brush Bandit and like, brush your teeth or something as well. Like I'll do that as well. Just like something short that you can focus on. And if you can involve more of your senses in doing that, involving your sense of touch and smell and taste, and really really be like focused and involved in whatever it is you're using as a distraction, that can help you get through that sense of nervousness. And you can also do this when you're at the event. If you feel really overwhelmed, you can do things like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 even just by yourself. You don't have to necessarily in the sense you can do it like quietly and not have people notice that you're doing it, or like excuse yourself to the bathroom to take a breather or go outside for a minute. People are really understanding. They know that sometimes you have to check your text messages or call a babysitter or check your Furbo video. Like people understand if you have to go for a second. You don't even need to like make up excuses. You can just go and do it. And anyways, hopefully all that helps. Thank you. My little dog. All right. How do I also attend these educational events? You RSVP to them and buy tickets. I'm not sure if this is referring to Leather Rain or if this is referring to events in general, but you have to find them first to be able to attend them. So that's the first step. But for Leather Rain, there is just a way to register for free online on their website, and that would be the way to do it. And then I think they give you Zoom links over your email address you sign up with, and that's how you attend the classes. That's how it's worked at like 95% of the online events I've gone to since the start of COVID. I've never been to LA. I have heard really mixed things about the scene there. Some people like it. Other people seem to have a lot of horror stories out of it, but it's also like LA, well, from what I understand, not personal knowledge. Like LA is such a big city and it's so like spread out in terms of the community. There are like good places and there are bad places and there's places in between, and you have to be kind of careful about which place you end up going to. But I have heard good things about Sanctuary LAX. I live in Los Angeles, and I have had good times taking classes at Sanctuary LAX. It's a dungeon near the airport. I did not know it was near the airport. Isn't that the dungeon where it's like pro doms are there during the daytime or something, and then like for weekend evening events it turns into like a community play space? Is that the same? Is that a different place? I might just be crazy. Don't know. That hasn't been confirmed yet. No, although Leather Rain, no, because I think that would be too much like rainforest. So no, it's Leather Rain, like R-E, no wait, that's not how you spell it. I can't spell out loud. Leather Rain, whatever it is. Rain like a sovereign. Well, that would make sense because it is in the Pacific Northwest, and so we have a lot of rain-related pun names with our convention titles around here. But I don't think, if that's a reference, it's more, I mean, that would be, I don't, maybe it is. Maybe that is a reference. I hadn't thought about that before, but that's a reference to the rainy weather. Maybe it is, though. Limited series, yes. That's the perfect word for it. Gwyneth Paltrow is trying to force Disney to release her from her MCU contract. Wait, what? Are you serious? Is Gwyneth Paltrow involved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? When did that happen? I'm Googling this. This is probably just bullshit. I mean, I guess she is an actress, right? Before she became an online shiller of dangerous sex toys and equipment. Oh, is she Pepper Potts? Oh, I looked at that and I realized she's been in all the Iron Man movies. And I'll have you know what? I only saw the first Iron Man movie and none of the other ones. And if she was actually Pepper Potts, it would have completely escaped my notice. Yeah, she's received 2 SAG awards and an Emmy and a Golden Globe. Like, why are you selling sex toys for thousands of dollars? Like, was being a highly acclaimed actress not good enough for you? This somehow makes everything worse. Because she doesn't want to do any of the Iron Man movies anymore? Yeah, she's Pepper Potts. Huh. I mean, she hasn't done a movie in like 3 years, so I guess that's that. Wow. Very funny. I don't know why this is funny to me. I just completely forgot that she was. I was thinking, why is she famous? Like, I couldn't remember why Gwyneth Paltrow was famous. I'm like, why is she even able to open a brand like this? And it's because she's been in movies. But I'm not sure what she's been in that. Oh, she was Hook. She was young Wendy in Hook in 1991. I'm just learning all kinds of things right now. Shakespeare in Love. Yeah, she's in that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't really watch movies. I don't know, like, most of these. I don't know most of these things. Huh. More you know. Alright, Gwyneth Paltrow. I guess being Pepper Potts wasn't good enough for you. You just had to go and ruin sex toy manufacturing for the rest of us, huh? She is an expert at getting followers and fans. I don't think people actually like Gwyneth, though. I think people love to hate Gwyneth Paltrow these days. I wonder, because there's almost all the articles you read about Gwyneth Paltrow are really critical of her. Like, her company was literally successfully sued for false advertising on, I believe it was their Jade Egg products in particular. So, clearly, the legal system is not one of her fans. But almost everyone I know that talks about her is very critical of her. So, like, what else could it be? What else could be part of this? You know, oh no, I'm going to lose part of the chat. You're not just supposed to, FYI, if you're a mod, you can just block them. You should be able to block them. Just hide user on channel is the option, by the way. I mean, there have been movies, not like every movie, but a lot of them. Like, Dune just came out, so clearly. I don't know if they were filming that recently, though. I'm not sure actually when they wrapped filming on Dune. Can't even remember. I was just talking about Gwyneth Paltrow for like 10 minutes. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. As a skinny, handsome guy, let me say that BDSM greater than sex, and this means physical size, attractiveness, gender. None of it is relevant as the energy you radiate. True. I think that is something to be said. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, if they're a guy, if they're not like really buff and really tall, they think, oh, well, no one's going to take me seriously as a Dom. It's about the confidence and the energy that you have and that you radiate. If you are somebody that is like of a smaller stature, that's on the skinnier side, maybe not super buff or something, and you're dominant, like, and I know female dominants that are teeny weeny people that are like barely 5 foot, that are under 100 pounds, and they radiate dom energy. And it's about having that confidence and that self knowledge of who you are and being like, fuck yeah, I'm a dom. Whereas if you're like, oh, I don't know, whatever you want, dear. Oh yeah, whatever you want. Like, if you act very passive and you don't know what you want, like, that is the opposite. And so we have to be confident and know what you want. You don't have to be, this is the thing though, you have to be careful. You don't need to be bossy about it. You don't have to be domineering towards random people around you and order random people around like you own the place. It's a balancing act. You're confident but not controlling. You're dominant but not domineering. And knowing the differences in those behaviors and actions is really, really important. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does to some people to some extent. I don't want to completely make it sound like nobody ever cares about anything, but I think that confidence in being dominant and being confident without being an asshole and being dominant without being domineering counts for so much more than just being vaguely conventionally attractive. Because I know lots of people that get into the scene that are that kind of conventionally attractive, like mid-20s, buff, 6 foot tall guy that just thinks because he's, you know, he remembered to shave that morning and put on some cologne that, like, now all the women are going to want to be my slaves. Like, no, it doesn't actually work like that, though. Like, you can't just show up and be like, time to worship me, my slaves. Like, that's not how it works. That's not, nobody wants that. Everyone's just going to think you're a dick. So you have to put in, like, effort is good, but, like, that's not how, you can't just waltz in and be like, okay, guys, I'm the dom now. Where are my slaves that are going to be assigned to me? It's not a thing that happens. And I've even seen people like that really struggle to find people to be partners with, typically because they waltz in and what they want is like rough sex with some kink added onto it, and their primary motivation is like they want sexual BDSM, but it's not even really sexual BDSM. They just want to have like rough sex and threesomes and choking, and that's kind of what they're after. And it turns out a lot of people in the BDSM community, especially submissive women, are not typically after only that. And so they're like, why can't I find anybody that wants to play with me? And it's like, well, dude, it's because you get your dick out constantly. And the only thing you talk about is wanting to have sex. And usually these people don't even go, they go to like one munch and then they never show up again because they're like, oh, no one wanted to have sex with me. And it's like, well, because going to a munch isn't about finding hookups, dude. You looked in the wrong place. You've been looking in the wrong place, my friend. Or not friend. It never shows up again. I'm new to being restrained and chained and handcuffs. What advice can you give me? When you are in handcuffs and chained, do not, don't put someone in general. I'm not addressing you. As a general piece of advice for when you're doing handcuffs and chains, do not handcuff somebody behind their back and then put them on the ground, because that is how you get positional asphyxia, and that's how you die. So don't do that. Quick release panic snaps are your friend. Don't complain to me about them ruining the mood and the sense of restraint, because they fucking don't. You know, unless you're like a really, really hardcore bondage person where the realism is super important. But being able to get at something quickly in an emergency, like a natural disaster or your partner having a heart attack, to me is much more important than like it being hyper realistic. So invest in having multiple keys. Check your keys. Don't get locked up alone. Don't get left alone when you're in bondage. Don't be put in a position where you could literally asphyxiate yourself because you can't get up or get out because of the bondage that you're in. So be careful about what you're doing. Take it seriously. And don't do bondage alone, generally. That's the core advice. That's the core thing to know. I saw a question. Where'd it go? Can you be a little who is also into DDLG? Sorry, I'm thinking about this for a second. Because I think the answer is obvious, but I'm trying to anticipate the background behind this question. So, the answer is yes, because DDLG stands for Daddy Dom, little girl. The more general preferred term is caregiver little. Those are the same thing. So if you are in a caregiver little or in a Daddy Dom little girl relationship, the L is you. You are the little. So yes, you can be a little that is into DDLG. If you mean like, can you be a little that also wants to be a caregiver? Yes, because switches can also be into CGL or DDLG. If you mean a little that is a little alter in a DID system, yes, although I'm not a mental health professional, so I don't know what that would look like. If by little you mean age player, yes, there are people who are only age players or only into CGL and not one or the other. And some people are into both and do both together at the same time. And you can also be an ABDL, an adult baby diaper lover, and also be into CGL or into age play. I have old videos where I've gone over what all three of those mean in terms of them being different from each other and how they are separate. Hopefully I covered any potential grounds for where that question came from. If you mean some other kind of little and I missed something, let me know. I would love to clarify the terminology for you so you can find information a little bit easier. But that is what I am deciphering from that question. Oh, Ivy. Oh, this is a good one. My ex sent me chocolates for my birthday and I just don't know how to respond. I mean, if he's an ex or they're an ex and you are not on speaking terms and you don't want to interact with them, don't reward them with interaction and just eat the chocolates. Or just throw them away. Who gives a shit? I've done both. I've gotten gifts from exes and I've both just put them directly in the trash and also consumed them and not thought twice about it. But if it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what your situation is. If it's like he cheated on you, you broke up, and now he's trying to get you back, like, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. It's a trap. You probably know it's a trap. And, well, I just hope they don't turn into a stalker. That's what I gotta say about that. Yeah, exactly. Where can I meet a potential sub? So, kind of covered this earlier, but FetLife is going to be your best friend. FetLife, again, is Facebook for kinky people. That is where you're going to find events. The best place to meet a submissive, and honest to goodness, somebody that wants to do power exchange submissive, not somebody that wants to role play in the bedroom, not somebody that wants sexy kink times, not somebody that wants to just be choked, but somebody that wants actual power exchange and a DS relationship. That is going to be at a BDSM event, usually in person, but there are also lots of online events as well. And that you can find locally on FetLife depending on where you live. I, however, am not an omnipotent kink god. I cannot tell you based on where you live what events are happening. I do not know what dungeons there are or where they are in Michigan. I don't know what kind of kink events they have in Nebraska. I don't know what the dungeons are like in Oklahoma. Just don't know. Don't have any idea. FetLife is going to be your friend, and you're going to have to take some risks and just use your own best judgment to find where you should spend your time. Now, you can sometimes find people that are also kinky on dating apps. Something that is very popular if you are open to open relationships, if you are non-monogamous, if you're polyamorous. I have heard that the app Field, I have not used it personally, but it's spelled Feeld, Field, is a good option for meeting people that are polyamorous and or kinky. I know lots of apparently bisexual people use that app. I don't have any experience with it. I can't say if it's good, bad, or otherwise. But things like OkCupid, Tinder, field. I know people have met kink partners on there, but 98% of the people that you run into on apps like that are not going to be lifestyle kinksters. They're not going to be in a power exchange. If they mention kink or like coded references to kink or something in their profile, most of the time what they're looking for is going to be rough sex with like some light bondage or light BDSM added to it. And if that's what you're looking for, great. You're going to find lots of people. If that's not your thing, it can be a frustrating search. And so just meeting people directly at events is going to narrow down that potential field quite a bit to the people that are more serious with their engagement. Wait, where's Brittany? I don't see Brittany. Where is she? She's escaped my notice. Hello, if you are in the chat. If you are really here. If you go to an event, just have your limits cleared to yourself and clarify them to anyone you interact with. Yes. Especially if you're going to be at an event where there's play. Hopefully there wouldn't be any boundary issues at like a munch in public. But if you are going to a dungeon event and you know, if you just want to like observe and you're not really into conversations, you can tell people, hey, I'm not really in the mood for talking right now. I've never had any issues with somebody not respecting those boundaries, but you know, never say never, and do be prepared to stick up for yourself. And that is when things like going to dungeon monitors, other event supervisors, if you do feel uncomfortable, definitely feel empowered to talk to them. I have volunteered as those people many a time before, and all we want to do is help and make sure people have a good time. So use us as a resource. Hello, you are here. Welcome, Brittany. So Andrew asked, what is a general guide for writing your about me on FetLife? I left mine blank until I knew what would be best to write. I think it depends on what you want. I'm a very verbose person, so I probably shouldn't be the person giving this advice because I probably say too much. I probably, if I had somebody actually review what my FetLife profile said, like or in general when I write, I probably just have notes that just say like be less wordy probably. But I generally think it's a good idea on your FetLife profile, like don't share anything you think is too private. Don't put your like full ass address or your legal name or whatever, but you can say, you know, I'm so and so, I'm a blank, you know, I'm a submissive, I'm a dominant top, I've been in the kink community for X number of years, and you know, just sort of write like you would, I guess, like a basic essay, I suppose. Like you have your introduction to who you are, and then you can say, you know, hey, you can find me, you know, I like going to discussion groups and munches. I have a particular interest in you know, flogging and caning. Like it depends on like if you're looking for events, if you're looking for classes, if you're looking for socialization stuff, like you can tailor your about me section to be like, hey, I'm really interested in like learning more and going to discussion groups, or I'm looking for a partner. You would go about that in a different way. I don't think there's a really good like quick general guideline I can give for like your about me, other than like if you are looking specifically to be able to contact people, though FetLife is not primarily used for that. If you do want to talk to and meet people through FetLife, your best bet for that is going to give an About You section that has information about you in it. Your kink experience, if you go to any regular events, what certain things that you're into, kind of why you're into them, what motivated you to find kink, how you got started, and then what it is you're looking for and why you're looking for it, right? So somebody that has no experience in the community that is looking for a mistress is going to have a very different profile from somebody that, you know, is a professional leather worker that has 10 years of experience in the scene, isn't looking for partners, but does like going to events, you know? So very different profiles, different people, but generally I think also if you include things that are about your like kind of everyday life but aren't personally identifiable, that can be a good thing as well if you are looking to talk to people and meet people through there. Talk about your other kink hobbies. I think this is something that a lot of more so male submissives kind of like fall in a rut around, is they make their whole profile about whatever their personal fetishes are. And I'm not a mistress, so I don't know. I don't know what like a female dom necessarily wants to read, but I know for myself, I do kind of roll my eyes a little bit when I see like a new male submissive's profile that's just all about like their foot fetish and how much they want to worship feet and have a mistress step on them, and like they have a blank profile except for that, and they have no pictures, or if they do have pictures, it's of like a penis or stolen images of their favorite like foot porn or whatever. Like that is like, it makes you seem like an alien. Like it makes you seem like you're not a real person. And I think if you have a little bit in there that kind of shows off your personality or talks about your other interests outside of BDSM, then makes it seem like you're actually a real person and not just like somebody that's looking to role play in like FetLife DMs and get off and then never talk to the person again, you know? So I would think about that. But as long as you have a profile picture that's not like a stolen photo from Google, and you have something in your about section that is not just a copy paste of your results from the BDSMtest.org, like you are doing better than 90% of profiles on FetLife. So, you know, don't beat yourself up about it too much. Okay. Where would you suggest a new dom start? This is going to sound like a stupid response to that question, but it is a legitimate question that I have in order to answer this correctly. When you say where a new dom would start, do you mean like physically where? Do you mean at like a munch versus a party versus something else? Or do you mean like where as in what should I start learning about first? I know that seems like a stupid clarification, but I think it's a good place to start. What are we doing, little girl? Are we trying to make a bed out of the ground? That is so sad. Come here. Hi. Come here. No, we're going to sit. Hi. If I go this way, what are you going to do? Do you want to say hello to the people? The people want to say hello to you. Yes. Hi. I love you, my sweet girl. You are the sweetest of all the girls. Yes. You are my sweetheart. You are my sweet girl, yes. Look at her. Look at my dog. And then you're going to fall over. Hi. Hi. You're okay. You're okay. Get cozy. What are you doing? You're not getting cozy. You're smelling my desk. What are you doing? So to get to the where would you suggest a new dom start? I am not familiar with these books because I haven't read them, but I do know, I believe, Princess Kali, Midori, and Morgan Thorne all have books you can get on Amazon that are about like female-led relationships or being a female dominant. So if you have not read those yet, I would maybe start there because it's going to have a lot of information in it. But I think really, and this is kind of similar to the question I answered earlier, but is more, I guess, tailored specifically to being a dom, is I really think knowing yourself is the first step. Because if you don't know what you want, especially as a dom, it is very hard to project being dominant to submissive partners. And there are some submissives that are like kind of willing to step outside that role and like help a new dom learn. I find male submissives are usually like they're way less tolerant to having their fantasy. If you're going to be playing with male partners, male submissives are way less tolerant oftentimes to having their like fantasy interrupted of like a powerful female dom. So if that's kind of going to be who you're going to be playing around, I think really understanding yourself first and what your interests are is going to be really, really helpful. So different doms obviously have different styles. If you're going to be kind of more cold and distant, more like a mommy dom, more like a caregiver, more kind of warm and friendly, or if you're going to be kind of somewhere in between, a mix of both, if you're going to go more into bondage, heavy impact play, fisting, pegging, sexual or non-sexual, all those factors, and also your own personal aesthetic in terms of like what kind of clothing do you wear? Are you really into latex, leather, tight-fitting clothing, costumes, role play, nurse outfits, medical play, like all of that is going to make things so totally different. So if you can start kind of identifying what it is that draws you to being a dom and what you enjoy about it, and then learning about that and kind of getting the start on like kind of forming your own identity and style, that will really, really help, especially when you do decide to like go out and play with other people to kind of have some sense of what it is you want to do, as opposed to kind of being like, I don't know, I guess I want to be a dom, but please tell me what you want to do. Like, that makes it a little bit hard, because then as a submissive, you're like, what can I ask for? What is okay, you know? You want to narrow it down a little bit. Hi, baby. Are we all settled now? No, we're not settled. Hey, it's okay. I don't know why you chose to lay down in the most uncomfortable way possible. Hi. Hi, good girl. All right. Oh God, we're only on the part where we've been talking about veganism and we only have 30 minutes left. I'm so sorry. I will try my best to get to as many questions as possible, but that's definitely not going to be something I can do. So if you want to make sure I answer your question, now would be the ideal time for a super chat. By the by. I have a blood fetish, but I also want people to feel safe and healthy, LOL. What can you do? I mean, there are ways you can engage in blood play in a safer way, in a healthier way. Not perfectly safe, not perfectly healthy. Anytime you're cutting the skin, there's going to be risks. But the answer is, drumroll please, going to classes and learning about it. Lots of people, professional piercers, surgeons, EMTs, doctors, nurses, the whole lot. Lots of people teach stuff about medical play, bloodletting, cutting needles, staples, scalpels, all of that. Taken so many classes about it. It's kind of a niche area, but maybe not as much as you might expect. There totally are ways that you can engage in stuff about that and learn how to do it in a safer way while not getting into the danger zone. But unfortunately, because this is YouTube, I cannot get into any more of detail besides that, other than to let you know there are classes and information out there about that. Obviously, learning things in person in real life is going to be the best way to do that, and I'm not sure of any online resources that I could recommend. And even if you can't go to kink events as well, if you can get like training in like bloodborne pathogen prevention and first aid and things like that as well, that will also go a long way for learning about some of the more important safety aspects of stuff and dealing with emergency scenarios should anything go wrong. Hi, what are you doing? Recently started hosting munches in my area after the previous host stopped. Any advice on being a good host, both on FetLife and in real life? So I have volunteered for events. I've never hosted my own event before, so I'm not sure entirely on the hosting side what you could do. I think it is really wonderful, though, that you sort of stepped up when other people stopped hosting for whatever reason. I think just remembering to be inviting to new people, helping to facilitate it being an inviting space, you know, making sure the rules are clear about not allowing discrimination, transphobia, homophobia, anything in the spaces that you happen to host is really important. Just being available in general on FetLife to answer questions, even if it's just like a line at the bottom of the event description saying, and like, if you're new, if you have any questions, like you can send me a message at my profile at blah blah blah, and I think that goes pretty far. If you want to know how to be more inviting to newer people, I think something that's really helped that's super simple locally. Do we have opinions about this? My goodness. Something that helps locally, I don't know if it's just you hosting, if you have anyone else there that's volunteering besides you, but especially if you have multiple people that are hosting, even if you just have like pre-planned discussion topics to bring up to ask people about, if you're going to be kind of staying more in one group as opposed to kind of splintering off into, hi, my goodness, are we okay? We got the sneezies, huh? Hi. Yeah, if you're going to be splintering off into like kind of individual conversations, it can be harder to make sure people feel like they are getting their questions heard and feel like invited. But if you are kind of doing more of like a big group scenario where it's like, you know, a dozen of you at one table, having some kind of pre-planned discussion question that you can involve everyone in, and making sure if you do notice people that are kind of off to the side, they're kind of by themselves, like you as the host have a really wonderful opportunity to make sure people feel welcomed and invited. Like I remember, I was in line actually to go to my first event at the local dungeon here. It wasn't my first event ever, but it was my first one in that area. And even just being in line waiting to get into that dungeon, like I got into a conversation with this person, ended up being a local event organizer who somehow like who knew he didn't recognize me from this event, so just sort of interpolated that I was newer to the area. He got in a whole conversation with me and made me feel really welcomed even before I went in the door. And so if you, you know, notice people are kind of by themselves and you know they're new or you haven't seen them before, starting a conversation with them and helping them find maybe another group of people you can introduce them to and just kind of help integrate them into the space can do a lot to help people feel like they belong or feel like they can be part of the larger conversation, I guess, and feel welcome. Because I think that's like half the job of hosting is organizing things and like actually making sure the space is reserved. And the other half is like making sure people feel welcome and like facilitating conversation. Hi, baby. Hi. How we feeling? All right, and the band is going to go back to her little banded space. Say goodbye. Say goodbye. All right, bye. I did answer, can you be a little who's into DDLG? So if you missed that, I'm sorry, but I did answer that question. Oh, homegrown dog gear and Etsy just branched into biothane human collars? Oh, really? I didn't know that. We love it. More options are great. Aw, I'm going through a really rough breakup right now. No hard feeling. It's best for him. But it's still so hard having known him for 4 years. This in the background really helps. I'm so sorry to hear that, Ace Overlord. That is really, really tough. And I know what it's like to go through the ending of a relationship that's been super long term. So I'm super happy to be here and to help you out. And hopefully the little bandit previews have given you a smile. And we're going to be here for another 20 minutes. So hopefully you'll stick around. Oh, we're doing this thing. Okay, so God, fucking I hate Tumblr. Tumblr has ruined so many things. And in particular, I think in a lot, like, Tumblr was really good for popularizing things like age play and CGL, but my God, it messed up a lot of people's brains. Like, because half the people, like, not even half, like 3/4, I get mad about this. 3/4 of the people on Tumblr who act like authorities about what CGL was supposed to be never had been to a fucking real life BDSM event in their entire goddamn lives. Like, they had only ever done it for aesthetic reasons on Tumblr, and then they anointed themselves experts, and then just, like, didn't address any of their internalized bias against things being sexual, and then redefined what kink is supposed to be for, like, a vast majority of, like, a whole group of people. And that just really pissed me off. Just really pissed me off. Oh my God. Okay. I guess... I don't know why. This, like, recent spam bot, this webcam thing just pops up, like, every week now. It's very entertaining. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, I was about to get really mad about people on a certain segment of the... No! I had to scroll down to get rid of the spam, and then I completely lost the whole thing. No! I'm so mad! Okay. I was literally, now I'm not even going to know what I was going to be mad about because I didn't get to finish reading it before I scrolled down to bam, the spam bot. So I'm going to rant about what I thought it was that person said. And then we'll move on. So what I imagine was happening, based on what I remember the reading, Tumblr did this, is it confused the shit out of people about the boundaries of like what CGL and BDSM is. And like a lot of people got this kind of like confused idea that like I've heard, because I've literally heard the opposite. I've heard people say that like you can't be a little if you do things sexually, and if you do them sexually, then you're only an age player. And I've heard other people say the opposite, which is being a little is non-sexual only, and if you do things sexually, then you're something else, I guess, and you're not a little. And the point at the end of the day is, in the actual fucking real life BDSM community where actual people exist and are the ones that invented these terms and defined them, I dare you, because I have taken classes from the people that invented this terminology, to correct me on this, like that actually are the ones that created what we now know as the CGL and age play communities as they are today. Hope I would know about this. Being a little can be non-sexual or it can be sexual. CGL, DDLG, age play, daddy kinks, any of those things, any combination of them can be together or not. They can be sexual or not. There's no reason why there can't be a diverse variety of experiences over how different people view their BDSM, how different people do their BDSM. And frankly, I think a lot of what happened on especially places like Tumblr, where people went, well, you know, being a little is this very pure thing where, you know, you can't do it sexually because doing it sexually is wrong and bad. Like that is like, I don't know if there's like a term for this, but like there's like this like internalized fear of like and shame over sexuality and eroticism, where people thought that like, well, you know, it's only okay if you do it this way. Like there have always been segments in, again, fucking fight me on this, because the queer leather community has been doing CGL and DDLG and daddy kinks way longer than all of y'all on Tumblr have. But like it has always been something where it can exist in a sexual or non-sexual way, and one is not worse than the other, one is not better than the other. They both just happen to exist and be different varieties of doing the same kind of thing. And there are some people that have, and I wish this would fucking die, but it just won't, so I'm gonna have to accept that it exists. But there is a segment of the internet that decided to take BDSM terminology, BDSM phrases, BDSM practices, things like aftercare, things like caregivers, things like fucking pacifier gags, and then say, well, we're going to do all this BDSM stuff and we're going to still use this BDSM terminology, but you see, this is safe for work now. This is safe for work age regression. This is safe for work caregiver little stuff. I'm like, okay, but you're still doing a power exchange interaction because you're having a caregiver take care of you that you take orders from, and you're also wearing a onesie that was manufactured by a kink company, and you're wearing a pacifier that's an adult pacifier that was manufactured by a kink company, and you're still using the terminology we use in the kink community, but it's not BDSM because BDSM is sexual and gross, and what you're doing is pure and okay because it's only age regression. It's not that scary, icky BDSM stuff. Like, I think it is perfectly fine to do things sexually or non-sexually. The part that gets me is, like, the fact that there is a segment of the internet that, to this day for years, has segmented itself off from the rest of everything else because they think that they are superior and better than the icky, gross people that do BDSM, even though they have seemingly no problems using all the same terminology and equipment, which just blows my mind. I'm like, you cannot call it BDSM if you want to, I guess, but, like, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, you know what I mean? I like how the ending to that, the clapping emojis, was a fork and a knife, and I don't know if that was by accident or not. I don't know if that means anything in particular. I'm not gonna get into my opinion of being an age regressor that also does CGL, because as far as I can tell, all the research I've done, all the academic literature I've read, all of that is a bunch of people decided they wanted to do age regression and go into little space without calling it BDSM, and then retroactively decided to rewrite history as being like, oh, well, like, you know, you can be an age regressor and not be kinky and not be sexual. And I'm like, okay, well, fine, like, I guess, but like, don't make it sound like it's been around longer than the BDSM community has, because lesbians were doing like caregiver little shit in like the 1980s. So like, you were doing it earlier than they were. I'm sorry to say. Yeah, exactly. We only do wholesome Christian littles around here, ma'am. Exactly. Exactly. People using CGL/BDSM views to separate themselves drives me nuts too, Evie. Like, just like address your own internalized bias about why you feel so negatively about eroticism and sexuality. Like, you can exist in the same community and do the same things as people that have things very differently. Like, there are people that do pet play that do it because it comes from a place of humiliation and degradation for them. There are people that do pet play because it makes them feel really free. It makes them feel like they're playing make-believe like they were when they were a kid. There's people that do pet play because it feels like a very intense level of subservience and a very intense form of power exchange. All three of those are very different motivations to do pet play, and they can all exist besides each other simultaneously and be mixed and matched together. And it doesn't mean they're completely separate different things. They just have different underlying motivations and reasonings behind them, but that's not enough to make them separate communities, because they all came from the same place and they're all part of the same sphere and they all use the same gear and the same terminology and everything else. Does that make sense? Like, that's kind of how I see it, at least. Sorry, I know I'm ranting about this. I'm sure some people disagree with me, but like, everything that I've seen suggests that this idea of like non-sexual safe for work age regression was like entirely invented on Tumblr, and then like people found out they liked it acting little, and then like didn't want to say that they were into BDSM, and so then they decided that like, well, this is actually going to be a coping mechanism, and like, literally anything can be a coping mechanism. Eating brownies can be a coping mechanism. Smoking weed can be a coping mechanism. Doing BDSM can be a coping mechanism. I don't care what label you give your coping mechanism, because any activity you do as a human can be a form of coping. So I don't think that elevates it or makes it special in literally any way. That also doesn't make it a good thing, and the way that you engage in it is good and healthy. You can have adaptive coping mechanisms. You can have maladaptive coping mechanisms. If you find that you know, having a tiny piece of a pot brownie before you go to bed helps relax your body and helps you not have PTSD nightmares before you go to sleep, awesome, perfect, I love that for you. If you are eating, you know, an entire sheet of brownies every night to the point you're developing a binge eating disorder, that's a maladaptive coping mechanism, because then you're using food to like cover up your problems. And I'm not a fucking therapist, but I hope we can agree that like the label of calling something a coping mechanism does not absolve it of anything or elevate it above anything else. And especially if we are using certain forms of kink as a coping mechanism, we have to engage in that very, very carefully. Because unfortunately, I think a lot of people do use coping mechanisms to get around actual like psychotherapy help and actual things that would like improve their life and well-being long term, and it's easier to stew in doing a thing that helps you temporarily avoid a problem as opposed to addressing a problem, you know? Like, I've seen it go both ways, where like it's a healthy, like a coping mechanism, especially one related to kink, can be like a healthy adjunct to other things you may be doing to address mental health issues. And then I've seen it go the opposite way, which is like somebody completely ignoring all of their mental health issues and then trying to use BDSM to fix it, and they're really surprised that they can't use a screwdriver the way they would use a hammer. And they're like, oh, I'm trying to use a screwdriver to solve my problems, but it's not working the way that a hammer would. So it must be the hammer's fault. It's like, no, you're trying to use the wrong thing to solve a problem that has to be solved using something else. You know? Like, I don't know. A lot of people just get real fucking... Mental health advocacy on the internet has been a real double-edged sword, because a lot of people now know a lot of terminology and then know nothing about actual implementation of psychotherapy practices. They now just know what gaslighting and narcissism is. And that's pretty much it. I am going hard because I am like I'm so frustrated about it because like I think like BDSM has a really it can be a really powerful tool for healthy personal experience and developing a healthy relationship with sexuality and eroticism and feeling safe and good in your own body. But there gets to be a point where a lot of people that don't know better like hear a bunch of people saying that like this thing is their coping mechanism, and then they start going really hard into kink without actually addressing any of their underlying mental health issues, and then like wonder why their BDSM like consensual non-consent scenes are like triggering their PTSD. And it's like, well, I don't know, like there could be a correlation there perhaps. And like I think it's just like you have to be careful. You have to be really careful about how you talk about mental health and kink going together, because unfortunately a lot of people don't have the previous introspection to know like how to have boundaries with themselves for like what they choose to engage in, for like what's healthy for them right now. Yeah, exactly. It's like using kink as a substitute for therapy. And yeah, it can be healthy, but you have to like be conscious of how you're engaging in it and not using it as a band-aid to avoid like a different problem. Um anyway, sorry, I rambled about that for a second. But like I think the thing as well, just like an end note for this, because I know I'm ranting about it, we only have a little bit of time left. I will say that on the note, every once in a while, it doesn't happen that often anymore because Tumblr's like died off a lot. But back when Tumblr was still like going pretty strong, ironically before they banned porn, it's kind of funny this part of the Tumblr died off. But I used to get comments a lot from people that would tell me that it was disgusting that I was using the term little, because the term little belongs to the non-sexual age regressors. And don't you know that in DID, you can have a system alter that can be a little, and so it's wrong for the BDSM community to use the term little because that's culturally appropriating from people that live with DID. I'm not even fucking kidding you. I have gotten comments like that at least a half dozen times. And more when I was still on Tumblr. I would get people that would like, reblog my stuff and like leave comments like that on it. And I'd be like, y'all don't get outside much, do you? So, fun fact, it is entirely possible for two different communities to have the same word for similar things and not have one of those things be stolen from the other. And the term little has been around since, for in a BDSM sense, like daddy and little were used probably at least since the 80s, probably longer ago than that, but like when we started having a lot of documentation we kept for stuff, definitely going back into the 80s for sure. And then what else I was gonna say with that? And it's like, it's just like, okay, first of all, like what substantive harm is being caused by this? Like we have to rationally evaluate what's happening here, right? Like, okay, the word is being used. This is the context it's being used in. Is there legitimately a problem where this is adding stigma to a mental health issue in the way that its term is being used? When it's very obvious from all contexts, it's being used in the sense of a consensual BDSM relationship. Because I get a lot of out there comments from a lot of people that don't understand a whole lot about words. I've never had anyone that's gone to one of my videos and has been confused that the video was about BDSM and not about system alters. Never had that happen. I have had people be confused about subspace not being something related to mathematics. I have had people be confused about CBT not being cognitive behavioral therapy. I have had people be confused about, there was something with like woodworking or something, like some kind of woodworking tool. Like I've had people confuse a lot of things on my channel and leave comments like, well, this was going to be a video about this, and then it wasn't. Never had that happen for anybody that was looking for stuff about system alters and then accidentally came across one of my videos about DDLG. as it turns out. Yeah, so it's just like, I think we should just like let people do what they're doing, let people use the words they're using. It's not causing any real harm. Also, there's no way in hell that you're ever going to get the entire BDSM community to completely erase a word from its lexicon because you personally don't like it. So even if it was something that needed to be changed and you felt it needed to be changed, like, you as an outsider are not going to be able to do that. I'm very sorry to report. So it's probably better to just move on and spend your energy elsewhere and don't just spend your life being mad. The end. Sorry, and I ranted about that for a while. I felt it was necessary though. Yeah, exactly. It makes people feel really shitty. It makes people feel like, I think that's just sort of like Tumblr culture, I think, was very fighty. Like, people liked being angry at each other, and I think Twitter has kind of become that way now in a lot of ways. Although I will say on Twitter, I don't get nearly as many people saying stuff like that, so I think it's kind of improved over time, but people are going to get confused about their ideas, and because they've gotten information from a particular group they identify with, they don't actually kind of question where that information comes from and just kind of go with it. It's some kind of like SAW or like an abbreviation for some kind of workshop tool I think people were getting confused about, and I can't remember what it was now because I don't know anything about woodworking. I'm just glad it's not as like intense as it used to be. Like, I think it's calmed down a little bit, but people gonna be like that. I think it's also why so many people conflate DDLG or CGL with pedophilia, because they think these things are always sexual, even though it doesn't even make sense because everyone's adult and it's fucking infuriating. Yeah, no, really. I think a lot of people do get confused, and it's like, it sort of perpetuates that stigma in a lot of ways. I don't think people realize they're doing that necessarily when they react so strongly, but it's like, let's investigate why you're having such a strong reaction. Oh, is it because you think CGL is pedophilia and bad, and so you're anti-CGL, so this is why you're saying this? Okay, interesting. That didn't take long, did it? I mean, I feel like getting rid of the porn on Tumblr just shook everything up enough to maybe kind of made everyone's brains calm down a little bit, maybe? I don't know. That's my hope, at least. I think the porn ban made most of the toxic people leave, and it made it a lot more chill. Yes. Yes. I think, well, I think a lot of them ended up going to Twitter, so now Twitter's just sort of its own hot mess. I don't know what IRCnet is, but then again, I didn't have internet for a good bit of my life, so what do I know? Well, it is 8 o'clock, so I'm going to try to answer one more question here that's not related to my hot opinions about age regression. Then we're going to wrap up because I got a video to edit. Let's see. Have you already discussed what a complete beginner can go about attending munches respectfully? I have not yet, but I do have videos talking about how to attend a munch and beginner advice for munches if you have not seen that before. After Halloween, my partner let me know that she wants to dress up as Thor in the bedroom. She laughed. I got excited. Has LARPing ever been associated with BDSM that you know of? Oh, yes, my friend. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Both in the sense that a lot of actual LARPing groups have a lot of kinky people in them, and also that a lot of people enjoy costume role play in BDSM. Like, I've seen people do like Trump and Melania. I've seen people do like, I'm trying to think of like especially around Halloween time, you get a lot of people do like couples costumes. You get like Cruella DeVille and like somebody dressed up as a Dalmatian. Like, you definitely get all kinds of like different costume stuff. Of course, I can't say sexually whether or not that ends up playing out, or if it's just like for the fun and, you know, having a joke in a local dungeon that people can kind of laugh at and participate in some humiliation play with. But for sure, role play is definitely very much a part of BDSM, or it can be. I got into an argument with somebody on the comment section a little bit of my last video about whether or not roleplay can be BDSM, because they really severely misinterpreted something that was said in the video. Like, Anthony had asked, like, oh, so then a dungeon sounds like it's kind of like a stage for roleplay. And then the person responded yes, and that being a dominatrix isn't a role for them. It is an extension of who they are. And that person interpreted that as them saying that when it's role play, it's not BDSM, which is not what was said in that video at all. Absolutely. Not every type of role play is BDSM. Role play by itself is not necessarily BDSM, but very many types of role play are BDSM. Like, if you're doing medical play where one person is role playing a nurse, like, it's role play because they're not really a nurse, right? Like, that's what role play is pretending to be something you're not. And lots of kinks involve role play. So, in case there was any confusion about that, it is a thing that happens. I don't even know if they were trying to misunderstand a troll or if they just, like, didn't know what they were talking about, because they kept being like, well, I know the difference, but I don't have time to explain it to you. And it's like, well, it's interesting because you have all the time in the world to respond to all these comments in 5 seconds, but like, you don't have time to explain anybody's, because it was like there were a bunch of people in this thread. There were like 3 other people commenting, and they kept replying to everyone like, well, I don't have, you know, I could, but I don't have time to explain to someone like you. And it's like, okay, well, do you really know the answer, or are you just posturing? The eternal question. Yes, Gomez and Morticia Adams are the ultimate kinky couples cosplay. It is true. Facts. And there are very many people who are kinky nerds as well, so it all works out, I think. It all works out. Okay. That being said, I think we are done for today, y'all. I'm on the internet, time to talk. Exactly. You know, you have all the time in the world to respond to comments and no time to explain yourself. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Well, thank you guys so much for being here tonight on this amazing Friday. So again, if you're looking for some kink education this weekend, I would recommend checking out Leather Rain. You can register for free. It is online. If you are into the more power exchange, leather culture community side of things, I would definitely check it out if you want to. There's going to be some interesting classes on there. There's also going to be a class about dark age play. So hey, you get to learn a little about that. Kind of going along with our CGL age play conversation. And that's what we got going on. And tomorrow, Patreon, starting at 12:30, having a matinee of Sex, Goop, and Love, Gwyneth Paltrow's probably extremely cringy way of introducing vanilla people to BDSM. And if you want to be part of that, it's on Patreon. Every dollar level, every tier, you will get an invite to join that live stream if you want to. I will be making a video about it for YouTube after I do that. But if you want my raw, real, unfiltered, swear word laden first impression, that's going to be on Patreon. But thank you guys so much again for being here. I will be streaming again next Friday. Hopefully I will see you there, and have a good night. Bye.